Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Dr. Salman Ahmed Shaikh. I am Associate Professor at Zabis University, Karachi, and I am also Director at Islamic Economics Project, and I also edit a monthly bulletin with the name of Moral Reflections on Economics. I am thankful for the opportunity to present some of my empirical work in this prestigious conference. The empirical work that I am going to present is basically trying to estimate what is the potential of zakat collection in Pakistan. We know that zakat is applied on cash, gold, silver, livestock, tradable assets, and anything of value which has the potential for growth. So if you look at zakat computation on value of financial investments, first of all, we need to look at what are the different kinds of financial investments which people make. People usually hold their wealth in bank accounts, mutual funds, stocks, annuities, and national saving scheme instruments. Among the individual heads related to financial investments, if only the wealth held by top 20% is assumed to be subject to zakat, where the pair has nisab value of wealth in excess of personal needs and debts, then we can compute the total zakatable base on each of the financial investment heads. World Inequality Database estimates that top 20% wealth owners in Pakistan own around 74.2% of wealth. If we assume conservatively that only these top 20% wealth owners are the ones on whom zakat is applicable, who are obliged to pay zakat, then if we apply 2.5% rate of zakat on the estimated aggregated value of financial investments held by top 20% wealth owners, we can come up with a potential figure of zakat collectible on financial investments. When it comes to KSE, Pakistan Stock Exchange, we know that zakat rules are applicable on shares in two different ways. Uh, if zakat on shares is to be applied, then we need to look at whether the intention of the person who is owning the stock is to earn dividend or to earn capital gain. If the investor is looking to earn capital gain and treating shares as any other tradable assets, then zakat on shares is to be applied at 2.5% of the value of the market value of the shares. So we know that most of the investments in shares in Pakistan are made by institutional investors who regularly trade shares in the market, and they treat shares as any other tradable asset. Therefore, we can take the market capitalization of Pakistan Stock Exchange and adjust it with respect to wealth distribution data from the World Inequality Database, meaning that of the total market capitalization, we only take the proportion of uh, share wealth which is owned by the top 20% wealth owners. So we can apply 2.5% rate of zakat on total market capitalization to obtain a conservative estimate of potential zakat collectible on shares. Coming to computation of zakat on tradable inventory, we take two heads, wholesale and retail trade, and exports. These figures are reported for each financial year in the national income accounts, but the value in these heads are reported as value of production over the whole year. But we know that zakat is applied only on a particular date. So we have to assume an inventory turnover ratio, which would give us the value of outstanding stock, value of outstanding inventory on which zakat can be computed. To be conservative, we take the inventory turnover ratio of 12, which implies that out of the total value of production over the whole year, 1 month inventory would be outstanding at each point during the year. So during the year when zakat due date comes, 1 month inventory would be taken as the zakatable base, and we can apply 2.5% rate of zakat on the estimated value of outstanding tradable inventory to come up with a potential figure of zakat collectible on tradable inventory. Coming to zakat on livestock, we know that zakat rates on livestock wealth differ depending on whether the animal is goat, cow, or camel. However, as argued by Allama Yusuful Qardawi, the average rate can safely be taken as 2.5% for a potential zakat estimation exercise. Now, again, we make the adjustment with respect to income distribution. According to World Inequality Database, top 20% wealth owners in Pakistan own around 74.2% of wealth. So we assume that the livestock wealth of these top 20% wealth owners is subject to zakat. So we apply 2.5% rate of zakat to get an estimated potential zakat collectible on livestock wealth. Coming to zakat computation on gold, again we need to use proxy data because it is difficult to obtain micro data on gold holdings in Pakistan. So using 2017 census data, we know that there are 32 million housing units in Pakistan. Out of these, the total owned housing units with minimum of 3 bedrooms are 10.5 million. We estimate from a survey in Karachi that a household living in owned housing unit with minimum of 3 bedrooms on average possesses 200 grams of gold. Definitely some households will own more or less than this, but for Pakistan, this assumption seems to be close to the mean value based on a survey that was conducted in Karachi. With our estimates, we arrive at roughly 40 trillion rupees of zakatable value of gold in Pakistan, which is held privately, taking the current price of gold into consideration. These estimates are very conservative because Economic Coordination Committee has also estimated that potential private gold holdings are around 5,000 tons. So when we apply the market price of gold to this figure, our estimate is just about half of the estimate which is proposed by Economic Coordination Committee. We can also double check it with another proxy data by looking at the gold holdings which are held by married females who fall in the upper middle income class. When we only look at the gold holdings owned by the married females in the upper middle class, we find that the estimated gold holdings would be around 38.6 trillion rupees. So using these two proxy data, we can say that the private gold holdings would be around rupees 40 trillion. So again, we can adjust this figure for income distribution, whereby we only apply zakat on the wealth owned by the top 20% wealth owners. So if we apply 2.5% zakat on the value of gold held privately by the top 20% wealth owners, we can find a potential of zakat on gold in Pakistan. Coming to zakat on real estate value, we again need to use some proxy data. We find that according to World Bank, around 60% to 70% of Pakistan's wealth is in real estate. And we also find from World Inequality Database that Pakistan's wealth to income ratio is around 5.5. So using the GDP figure and the wealth to income figure and estimated ratio of real estate wealth in total wealth, we can get an estimated value of real estate wealth in Pakistan, which turns out to be approximately 302 trillion rupees. If only 10% of this real estate wealth is considered as held for trade in excess of regular personal use, then the held for trade real estate wealth can be conservatively estimated at rupees 30.2 trillion. If we apply 2.5% rate of zakat on it, the potential zakat collectible on real estate wealth can be estimated. Coming to zakat on the rental value of real estate, we estimate that average rental yield in Pakistan is 4% as per the average rate obtained from Garana, Zameen and other real estate platforms. Census of 2017 provides the data that 11.53% of all housing units are rented in Pakistan. Applying this 11.53% to total estimated real estate value, we can obtain the estimated base of real estate wealth that is rented. Then applying 4% average rental yield annually, we can obtain the zakatable base of aggregated rental income in Pakistan. Finally, we can apply 2.5% rate of zakat on this amount to obtain the potential zakat collectible on rental income. Coming to Usher on production, first of all, we need to find how much of the value of production from agriculture is coming from irrigated lands and how much of the value of production in agriculture is coming from non-irrigated lands. If you look at Economic Survey of Pakistan, it reports that 82.57% hectares of cropped area is irrigated by canal or tube wells, while 17.43% of the cropped area in Pakistan obtains water supply from natural sources such as rain. Assuming constant returns to scale on average, the NISP Usher meaning 5% and Usher meaning 10% rate of zakat can be applied on the value of agricultural produce to estimate the potential of Usher collectible in Pakistan. We know that in Islamic jurisprudence, only the production from land is subject to Usher. What about fish catch and poultry production? These are subject to zakat if held for trade. Assuming inventory turnover ratio of 12, only 1 month production value is assumed to be subject to zakat from the total annual value of production in fish catch and poultry. Then we can apply 2.5% rate on this aggregated value of production subject to zakat to find out the potential of zakat collection from fish catch and poultry. Now summing all these figures, we can find out total potential zakat collectible in Pakistan annually, and the estimate is around rupees 3 trillion, and this is almost equal to 3.5% of GDP. However, we know that the zakat collected by the government is very little as compared to the potential. We did a study with Institute of Policy Studies Islamabad, and the objective of the study was to find the challenges in zakat and usher administration and what reforms can be suggested to overcome those challenges. So in this slide, you can see the challenges which are faced by the zakat payer, the zakat receiver, and also the government. From the zakat payer's perspective, the important challenges are trust deficit between the zakat payer and the government, lack of awareness about zakat obligation, and lack of tax incentives. From the receiver's perspective, the important challenges are lack of impactful donation, and that is partly because of lack of funds, and also the fact that the donation which is given to zakat beneficiaries, they are in the form of one-time small cash assistance, which does not yield any socio-economic mobility. From the government's perspective, the important challenges are very little collection, complexity in assessment, especially in the case of usher, incomplete land records, informal market, rural-based agriculture in a autarky-like economy, inadequate administration for involuntary compulsory collection, and exemption which is granted to everyone, which results in lower collection in the centralized zakat system. And another important challenge is that there is a perception that the local zakat committees are having some political interference in their administration and work. So all of this creates lack of trust in the system, and that is why people prefer to pay zakat privately rather than paying it to the government. In the light of our study, which we did with Institute of Policy Studies Islamabad, we also recommended certain reforms. When it comes to recommendations in assessment and collection, we recommended to enhance the coverage of zakatable assets and to also create awareness about zakat and to also facilitate seamless zakat assessment through calculators and website. And we also recommended to use crowdfunding, especially with the help of fintech, to match the funding gap in specific causes in different regions. And we also recommended to introduce incentives and differential treatment for enhancing the zakat base. Just like FBR has introduced differential treatment based on who is tax filer and who is not tax filer, the same way we can also introduce such a differential treatment to provide some fiscal incentive for greater collection in the centralized zakat system. And also we recommended to establish a mechanism for collection of zakat from the general public. When it comes to recommendations in zakat administration, we recommended that the barriers for community engagement should be reduced, the data should be streamlined and centralized so that effective filtering can be done, and people taking help from multiple donors, multiple doning agencies, this kind of thing should be avoided. And we also recommended to reduce political interference to enhance the trust between general public and the zakat agency. We also recommended that in zakat disbursement, it is important to use the digital and fast mediums of disbursement, and also to introduce synergies in programs, meaning that there should be a graduation-based social protection system whereby the ultra-poor are given more assistance, and then as they graduate, the zakat should move from consumptive zakat to productive zakat. We also recommended to use the wakala system to have public-private partnership, and also to document the economy for effective targeting and profiling.